Yesterday, the BBC released the first episode of a new podcast which centres on Shamima Begum, who made worldwide headlines, of course, when at just 15 she left the UK to join the terrorist group ISIS in Syria. Well, 8 years later, Shamima is living in a Syrian refugee camp, fighting a legal battle to return to the UK after her British citizenship was revoked in 2019. And she's been telling her story to BBC reporter Josh Baker. Nadia, you and I both listened to the podcast, haven't we? I mean, did you want to hear her story? Do you feel like her story should be told?
Well, you know, the thing is, the journalist who's doing it, it's quite organic because he was actually filming in a mosque at the time that she went away. So it's a proper investigation to what happened. It's not just merely her just telling her story. But I think it's really, really important. I cannot believe that the British government don't want her here to find out the enormous amount of information she must have. Because I would imagine it would take multiple agencies and all kind of undercover work to find out what she knows. And the thing is also that I want to know is, if we have to admit that people get radicalised, right? Right across the world, people get radicalised. Good and bad people can be brainwashed into doing terrible things. And at the time that she first decided that she was going to go out and join ISIS, she was 15 years old, and this was an online thing. Now, I want to know more about how and why and in what ways people are radicalised, because I think the more information that we have, the safer we'll become. And so I think, in the most simple terms, she's a goldmine of information that the British government should want to get that information. And on the other hand, if there are now hundreds of other young girls, we don't know if she was groomed or anything, but I think at 15, there's probably real likelihood.
Legally, she's a child.
Legally, she's a child. I want to know what was her life like. Now, there was a number of people I went to school with, lovely girls who had very strict Muslim families, and they would be at school and they would study. And then you came home from school, you went straight to your room, you'd have dinner with your family, no discussions outside of that, and then into their bedroom to study. Now, somebody I know told me about these ISIS videos, which some of these young girls look at. And these ISIS videos are incredibly well-produced, great production values, in the desert, you know, very good-looking men, flowing robes. And some of these girls, don't know for sure, Shamima, but I want to know that out, get drawn into this romantic idea of what they're going to. And I think it's really important we know about that.
And in terms of her age, Jude, I know that you've worked with young people before. And if we're going down the route of was she groomed, was she radicalised, and she was legally a child at the time, what do you think about her story being told?
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because I can understand where some people feel like they don't want to hear the story because at the end of the day, it's you know.
Well, she joined a terrorist group.
A terrorist group, but it's such a complex situation. We're dealing with at the time of her being groomed was a 15-year-old girl. So, you know, there's safeguarding issues, that alone. And then the fact that she actually was a British citizen, that is why probably you want to hear more about the story. You need to understand the complexities of it. It's easy to kind of be turned off and be like, no, she broke the law or whatnot, she was out there, she did that. But what was the scenario behind it? And take away just this situation of being radicalised, there's a lot of young people that feel kind of disenfranchised from society as it is. So if you have that, then you add race onto it, then you add class, then you add whatever other insecurities that they might be facing. These are perfect targets for people to groom them. So that is something that needs to be investigated.
And I think one thing that we mustn't forget, this isn't something... Young people are being radicalised and groomed online on a daily basis. There are cases which are tried in the UK on a weekly basis, and I'm not necessarily sure that people understand how to effectively deal with that. But Cara, when it comes down to Shamima herself, do you feel like she should be given a voice?
No, I don't. Absolutely, 100% no. It's been ruled by the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, that she is not worthy of her British citizenship, so it's been taken away from her. And this to me looks like the BBC, which is the state broadcaster, so that's basically our money, spending money on giving her a voice. And again, it's her story. There's no way of checking anything. It's just what she says and what she feels. And
I think it's not unchallenged. So I've listened to the podcast, and just like any journalist would when it comes to
of course he does,
to somebody who she's not been charged with an offence because she's been not allowed to come here to be able to have a trial in a court of law. But the BBC just say it's not a platform for Shamima Begum to give her unchallenged story. This is a robust investigation into who she really is and what she really did, and that's what the journalist does do, which is a job of a journalist.
Which they say is in a massive public interest story. Frankly, I don't think it is. I think the majority of people in this country...
Should we not learn how young people...
Why her? Why her?
Because
she has an incredible amount of information. If we want to...
All you do is sit here making excuses for us.
No.
Might have done that. You know, I'm sorry. The decision has been made. She's not here and she's not allowed to come back. And that's it.
I
don't want to hear what she's got to say.
Can I just ask you one question, though? Can I just ask you one question? I hear that, and I hear that is passionate, and I know that a lot of people feel like... But what do you think about the idea that if we had more information, if she was radicalised, if we were able to get more information and maybe stop the amount of radicalisation going on that we know is going on, wouldn't that be a useful thing for this country?
Well,
I mean, what do you think
the reality is there is a lot of parents...
Do you believe anything she says?
No, but what...
She's not stupid, you know. Everybody thinks... Everyone goes, oh, she was only 15, you know, she's a silly girl.
We don't know her
she's
personally.
She's not stupid. Even the journalist says she's not stupid.
We don't know her personally. We only know what has been put forward. But even if we take all of that away, I would say from the work that I've been in, as a parent, if you have a child at that age, 15 younger, this could have been your child.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. I think we need to get to a stage to understand why. Like, I hear what you're saying with, you know, giving a platform or worrying about the fact that we don't know whether you feel like she's telling the truth or not.
She knew what she was doing.
It
was very well planned. She just said that in that clip that we heard. It was very well planned. Everything was organised for her. She knew.
One could argue that
she didn't know that was wrong.
One would argue that a 15-year-old girl who's grown up in East London, who has not been to Syria before, if she had a true understanding of what she was flying into, I would be shocked. Because at that point, there aren't that many people in this country who are grown adults who necessarily knew exactly what was happening within Syria.
Yeah, but she's also admitted to not being fazed by any of it, remember? Remember when she said that?
But if we have a look at what's been happening online, we did ask the question, should Shamima Begum be given a platform to tell her story? Amy says she has a right to tell her story just like we have the right not to buy or read it. My personal opinion is that she'll be wasting a lot of time. Melanie, no way. If people are old enough to take GCSEs at age 15 or 16, they're deemed to have an understanding of intellect and know what they are doing.
But to people...
Tamika says... Hang on one sec.
But we've got to ask ourselves, can brainwashing be a thing?
Tamika says, no, she chose her future. She needs to accept that. Sarah says, I think she should be able to tell her story. She was groomed, manipulated, and she was a youngster at the end of the day. This is a story that we can debate over and over again and have been doing since 2015 when they first got on that plane. But, you know, the podcast is there for you to listen to and the case is still pending.